My name is Rabia Ahmed. I'm 39 years old, a schoolteacher in Islamabad, and for as long as I can remember I've been the one who quietly kept this family from falling apart. But that night, at the Big Eid family party in our old house in F10, everything I thought I knew cracked open. The fairy lights were still twinkling over the lawn. The smell of freshly fried samosas and nahari hung thick in the warm air, and children were laughing somewhere near the swing. I was refilling chai cups when my older sister Nadia raised her voice just loud enough for the whole circle to hear. "You're the family failure, Rabia. Always have been." Her words landed like a slap. My cheeks burned. I stood there holding the teapot, steam curling around my fingers, while uncles and aunties went quiet. And then her boss, the tall, polished Mr. Farhan who had flown in from Lahore for the weekend, only smiled, that slow, knowing smile, and said, "That's exactly what makes a success story inspiring, Nadia, rising above such obstacles." A few people chuckled nervously. Someone changed the subject to cricket, but I couldn't move. My heart was hammering so hard I could feel it in my throat. I looked at Nadia, the same sister I had fed, clothed, and helped through university when Abu was sick, and for the first time I saw something cold in her eyes. Before that night, life had felt simple, even warm. I lived in the small upstairs flat with Amy, teaching grade 4 at the nearby government school. My salary was modest, but I made sure Amy's medicines were never late and the house never felt empty. Nadia, 5 years older, had moved to a fancy marketing job in Lahore. She visited once every few months, always in beautiful clothes, always talking about her targets and her vision. I was proud of her. I told everyone how brilliant my sister was. When she needed extra money for her MBA, I emptied my small savings account without hesitation. Family first, I used to say. We still had our little rituals. Every Sunday I would call her and we would laugh about old times. The way she used to steal my dupattas, the way I used to cover for her when she sneaked out. She would send me photos of her office cabin and say, "One day I'll get you a job here too, Rabia. You deserve better than that school." I believed her. But 3 months before the party, small things started to feel off. She stopped answering my calls on time. When I asked if she could help with Amy's new physiotherapy, she sighed loudly and said, "Rabia, I can't keep carrying the whole family on my back. You need to stand on your own feet." Her voice had an edge I had never heard before. I told myself she was just stressed at work. I told myself not to be sensitive. Then came the party. I excused myself from the lawn, saying I needed to check on the biryani in the kitchen. No one stopped me. Inside, the fluorescent tube light buzzed overhead. I leaned against the marble counter, breathing slowly, trying to push the heat out of my face. My hands were still trembling when I picked up the steel spoon to stir the pot, even though the rice was already perfect. Later that night, after most guests had left and the house smelled of burnt agarbati and leftover gulab jamun syrup, I found Nadia in the drawing room scrolling through her phone. Amy had gone to bed early with her arthritis pain. The ceiling fan clicked lazily above us. I sat across from her on the old brown sofa and said quietly, "Why did you say that in front of everyone?" She didn't look up right away. "Say what?" "You called me the family failure." A small laugh escaped her, short, sharp, like she couldn't believe I was bringing it up. "Rabia, come on. It was just banter. You're so sensitive these days." Everyone heard. Emmy heard. "And your boss?" He smiled like he already knew the whole story. She finally put the phone down and met my eyes. "Farhan knows everything. I talk about work, family, life. He's a good listener." I felt something twist in my stomach. "What exactly did you tell him about me?" She shrugged, casual, as if we were discussing the weather. "The truth. That I've been the one carrying the financial load for years. That Abu's hospital bills, Amy's medicines, even your school fees back then, I handled most of it after he passed. You stayed here, teaching little kids, happy with your small world. I moved cities, took risks, built something. That's not failure, Rabia. It's just different priorities." I stared at her. "I gave you every rupee I had saved for my master's when you needed it for your MBA. I never asked you to pay it back. I never once said you owed me." Her jaw tightened. "And I never forgot. But gratitude doesn't pay rent in Lahore. Does it? Or buy a car? Or get promotions?" The room felt smaller. The ticking of the wall clock sounded louder than her voice. That was when the first real crack appeared. Not just hurt, but suspicion. The next morning I woke early to make parathas for Amy. While the dough was resting, I opened my banking app. Something I rarely did because seeing the low balance always made my chest tight. But today I scrolled back through the last 2 years. There it was. Every month, without fail, a transfer of 25,000 rupees from my account to Nadia's. I had set up the standing instruction years ago when she first moved to Lahore. "Just until you settle," she had said. I never cancelled it. I thought it had stopped long ago when she started earning well. But no, it was still running. 25,000 every single month. From my teacher's salary. I sat on the kitchen stool, phone in hand, feeling the blood drain from my face. That money had been for Amy's new knee replacement consultation, for the leaking roof in the upstairs flat, for my own overdue dentist appointment that made chewing on the left side painful. I hadn't noticed because I lived paycheck to paycheck anyway. I just kept adjusting, borrowing from friends for emergencies, telling myself things would get better. When Nadia came down for breakfast, hair still damp from the shower, smelling of her expensive rose perfume, I didn't say anything about the transfers. Not yet. Instead I asked, very calmly, "How much did you tell your boss about our family finances?" She paused with the paratha halfway to her mouth. "Why?" "Because last night he looked at me like I was a charity case. And you let him." She rolled her eyes. "Farhan is mentoring me. He's seen my performance reviews, my stress levels. He asked why I seemed distracted sometimes. I told him the truth, that I worry about Amy, about you managing alone. That's all." I nodded slowly. "And did you tell him I'm still sending you money every month?" Her fork froze. For the first time that weekend, she looked genuinely surprised. "What are you talking about?" "The auto transfer. 25,000. Every month. For 2 years after you said you didn't need it anymore." Silence stretched between us like a tight wire. Then she laughed. A short, disbelieving sound. "Rabia, if that transfer was still going, don't you think I would have mentioned it? Or better yet, canceled it myself? You're imagining things." But I wasn't. I had the screenshots. I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I simply opened my phone, turned the screen toward her, and let her see the transaction history glowing under the morning light coming through the kitchen window. Month after month. 25,000. Her account number at the top of every entry. Nadia's face changed in stages. First confusion, then a flicker of recognition, then something harder. Anger, maybe, or fear. "That's impossible," she said, but her voice was thinner now. "I would have seen it in my statements. You told me once you never check the incoming credits. Only the debits. Because you trust the system." I kept my tone even, the way I speak to a child who's been caught copying homework. "I trusted you." She pushed the plate away. The paratha sat untouched, oil pooling on the edge. "Even if it's true, which I doubt. Why didn't you say something sooner? You let it keep happening." "Because I thought it had stopped. Because I believed you when you said you were independent now. Because I'm your sister, Nadia, not your accountant." The silence that followed was the heaviest I've ever felt in that house. She stood up abruptly. "I need to make a call." She walked out to the veranda. I heard her voice low and urgent on the phone. Not angry, but pleading. When she came back 10 minutes later, her eyes were red-rimmed. "It's true," she said quietly. "My accountant noticed irregular credits last year, but I told him to ignore them. I thought, maybe Abu's old pension or something. I didn't want to ask and seem ungrateful. I waited." "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't realize how much it was. Or how long." I nodded once. "You told your boss I was the failure. You let him pity me in front of the whole family. That wasn't banter, Nadia. That was humiliation." She covered her face with both hands. For a long moment she didn't speak. When she did, her voice cracked. "Farhan has been pushing me for a promotion. He said I need to show I can handle pressure, personal and professional. I thought, if I painted you as the one who needed help, it made me look stronger. More capable. I was wrong. I was cruel. I didn't forgive her right then. Forgiveness doesn't come on command. Instead I said, cancel the transfer today, and pay back what you took. Not all at once, but in installments. For Amy's treatment first. Then the roof. Then whatever is left, whenever you can." She nodded quickly. "I will. I promise. And one more thing," I added. "Next time you visit, you tell Amy the truth yourself. No more stories about how you're carrying everything alone." She looked at me like she was seeing me for the first time. Not the quiet little sister who always gave in, but someone who finally knew her own worth. 2 months later, at a smaller family gathering for Amy's birthday, Nadia arrived with a thick envelope. Inside was the first installment, 50,000, and a handwritten letter she read aloud in front of everyone. She didn't make excuses. She said she had taken advantage of my trust, that she had let ambition twist her into someone she didn't recognize, and that she was ashamed. Uncles murmured. Aunties dabbed their eyes. Amy reached over and held her hand the whole time. Mr. Farhan wasn't invited that day. I still teach at the same school. The salary is still modest. But I canceled the auto transfer myself the week after Eid. I started saving again, small amounts, but mine. Amy's physiotherapy is going well. The roof no longer leaks. And Nadia calls every Sunday like before. The conversations are shorter now, more careful, but they're honest. I don't hate her. Hate would mean she still had power over me. What I feel instead is something quieter. Relief. Relief that I finally spoke my truth. Relief that the family didn't shatter, it just changed shape. Sometimes the biggest failures aren't the ones who stay small. They're the ones who step on others to look tall. I've learned that standing up for yourself doesn't make you selfish. It makes you whole. If someone you love ever calls you a failure in front of others, what would you do? Would you stay silent to keep the peace? Or would you finally let your voice be heard? Tell me in the comments. This is Broken Trust Stories. I'm Rabia, and I'm still here.